Hello everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Plus and compare it against the iPad 10th generation and see how both of these particular devices essentially hold up. Now, the thing I would definitely tell you is that in my personal opinion, if you're taking a look at both these devices, the iPad 10th generation is a little bit older now compared to something like the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10. So for some people, it might make a little bit more sense for you to go ahead and purchase something like a Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 because that one is probably going to be the one that's going to have more features and just more everything inside of it. But when I do take a look at something like this, iPad 10, I think for the price and for the capability of that device, I still think that type of device holds up very, very well when it comes down to it. So if at any point you want to buy either one of these particular tablets, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these particular tablets, if you go and take a look, the iPad 10th generation, which came out about 2 years ago, on the front side of this particular tablet, it's giving you a 10.9-inch liquid retina IPS LCD panel. Now, with this type of screen, it definitely is a pretty, basic display when it comes down to it. There's not anything super insane going on with it. I think a lot of people would kind of acknowledge that. It's a pretty basic type of display, but it's not that bad. It's pretty big. It's not the brightest panel of all time, but it is still a good, decent panel for the price that you're paying. And I do think that's a decent thing going on for this type of panel. A little bit of bezel around it. You do have the Face ID option on the front as well, which is really nice. But beyond that, there's not really anything else like super insane going on here that we haven't seen before. But I would still say it's a good device, and if you are going to go pick up a panel, it's not the worst thing in the world. Now, on something like the Galaxy Tab S10 Plus, this is a little bit of a different story. This particular tablet is basically giving you a bigger 12.4-inch dynamic AMOLED display. So this thing is bigger, it's also brighter, and it's 120 Hz. Whereas on the iPad 10th generation was basically just, a standard 60 Hz panel. So that in and of itself, I would say is a pretty big difference in and of itself. And that is a pretty big advantage that I like having inside of devices like my Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Plus, because that panel is overall going to be significantly better than something like the iPad, 10th generation. So when it comes down to the front sides, definitely the, Tab S10 Plus wins. Now, on top of that, another very big thing to keep in mind here is the rest of the bodies, and they both feel, relatively somewhat similar. Like there's some key differences here and there, but there's not like an insane amount of differences that we haven't felt or seen before. The thing to keep in mind here is that when it comes down to both these particular panels, the thing that's actually kind of fascinating is that, they both having USB-C on this, bottoms, they both have, S Pen capability and Apple Pencil capability, which is nice to have, some nice to have features here. Is there anything that I look at both that I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so much better on the other one? It probably, when it comes down to the display and when it comes down to the, microSD card slot inside of the, Tab S10, but other than that, I think there's a lot more similarity when it kind of comes down to it. But both phones and both devices hold up very, very well when it comes down to that kind of stuff. So when it comes down to that, I would probably say that kind of covers it up here. But the main advantage I would say of the iPad 10th generation is that you are basically getting a device on the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 that is essentially giving you, it's a more expensive phone. So if you're going to go through and get a tablet that's more expensive, it's going to be that on the Galaxy Tab S10 Plus. So when you're trying to go find one that's going to be a better value per dollar, like I said before, it's probably going to be the iPad 10. That is a significantly cheaper type of tablet in almost every single way. And that is going to be a really, really big advantage. If you're trying to go through and buy a tablet that's going to be the cheaper one, it definitely from a price tag standpoint is going to be something like an iPad 10th generation. So from that side as well, that kind of covers it up there too. Now from the camera side, both devices are basically giving you a little bit of a different type of camera. So in the Tab S10 Plus, you're getting a dual camera setup, a 13 megapixel wide and then an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera. Whereas on the iPad 10th generation, you're getting just a single 12 megapixel wide angle camera. In my personal opinion, if you're going to look at both these devices, I genuinely do like having these types of devices on the Tab S10 Plus that are going to hold up very, very well. You're getting 4K at 30 on the front and the back of the Tab S10 Plus. Whereas on the iPad 10th generation, you're getting 4K at 60 on the back and 1080p at 60 on the front. So in some ways, I would probably say that the camera on the Tab S10 Plus is kind of better here and there because you are getting an ultra-wide camera. But I really do like on my Tab S10 Plus that I am getting, 4K at 30 on the back and the front. But at least with the iPad 10th generation, you're at least getting something that's giving you, essentially that 4K at 60 on the back. So that is something that I actually like a lot about that type of device. And if I'm going to look at one, it probably is going to be something like the Tab S10 Plus. That might be better here and there. But I think the iPad 10, because of the frame rate resolution, the frames per second that's brighter, it is definitely a really nice thing going on for that type of device too. So when it comes down to that side as well, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. Now, when it comes down to some other things about these devices like software longevity, it's hard to tell right now which one's going to be the longer lasting one. I'd probably say in a lot of ways, it probably makes a lot of sense for something like the Tab S10 Plus. Like that device might be the one that's going to last longer here. And the reason for that is because that device has a longer software longevity ahead of it. So I think a device like that might end up being the faster one for the most part, or it's going to be the one that's going to last for the longer period of time, which I actually like a lot. I think if you're going to go through and like pick up a device, it's nice to have these types of Samsung phones that are going to be lasting that long, or Samsung tablets that are going to be lasting that long. But I do look at something like the, iPad 10th generation, and for the price, this thing is still going to be supported for a couple of more years, which is really nice to have. So this thing, is still going to be here for a couple of years. You don't really have too much to complain about here from that side. But keep in mind, if you want the longer lasting one, like I mentioned before, it probably is going to be something like the Galaxy Tab S10 Plus. Now beyond that, another very big thing going on here too is the batteries. So the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Plus as of this point is giving you a 10,090 mAh battery, where the iPad 10th generation is giving you a 7,606 mAh battery. So this in and of itself again is another really, really big thing going on here. The fact that you can go ahead and get a device on the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus that's going to be giving you that big of a size battery is something that's really cool, and I definitely do like that a lot. So this is in and of itself a really, really nice thing. But I do look at something like the iPad 10, and I think that one is still going to be holding up fairly well when it comes down to it as well. So from that side, that is another big thing to keep in mind here. On top of that, when it comes down to the performance capability, the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Plus is giving you that MediaTek Dimensity 9300 Plus chipset with 12 gigabytes of RAM, where the iPad 10th generation is giving you that Apple A14 Bionic chip inside with 4 gigabytes of RAM. So substantially more RAM inside of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Plus. And for a lot of people, I would probably say that type of device is probably going to be a really, really good device, right? Especially with that 120 Hz display, that is a really nice add-on to that type of device too. And I would probably say for a vast majority of people, if you're wanting the faster, more powerful device, it is going to be the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Plus. But with that being said, I do think something like the iPad 10 is still going to be pretty decent for a lot of people as well, right? Like I feel like for a super budget iPad, this thing isn't going to be super bad in a lot of ways. And I would probably say in a lot of ways too, that is a really big advantage for that type of device. So for me personally, to kind of sum up this whole entire video, I genuinely do think that for a lot of people out there, a device like the Samsung Galaxy Tab S10 Plus is probably the better, more powerful device for a lot of people. That one makes a lot more sense to go and pick up. But I do look at something like the iPad 10, and for a cheap budget device like I mentioned before, I think that might make a lot of sense to go and buy too. Like that thing doesn't cost that much money. It's substantially cheaper nowadays, and I think that might make quite a bit of sense to go and pick up that type of device as well. So take it as you will, but that's kind of how I see both these devices pretty much holding up from that particular perspective. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.